Hello, and welcome to the Angus and Pete Show. Views and opinions are strictly those of the presenters and their guests and should not be taken as advice. Goodness knows, we're not qualified to advise you about anything. Side effects may include mild amusement and occasional enlightenment with feelings of embarrassment, apathy, disappointment, and pity.
Welcome to episode 33. I'm Angus Pacey.
And I'm Pete Brown, and we are the Angus and Pete Show.
The place where you can listen to two guys chatting about this riveting world of customer engagement.
That's customer engagement, otherwise known as call centre, contact centre, customer service, customer experience, CX, or whatever else you're calling it this week.
And if you want to know more about us, then just check us out on LinkedIn. So, Pete, this is another season 1 recap, where we're grouping those episodes together that have got a common theme for those that are too busy and important to listen to a full episode. Short, punchy to the point for those with the attention of a gnat.
Yeah, we're going to do a few of these, aren't we? Just to keep us going through the summer holiday season while we decide whether we're going to do a season 2. Just let us know if you think we should do season 2. Or shouldn't, or just don't care. We'll count the votes in a few weeks' time and let you know. But the destiny of season 2 is in your hands, dear podcast listener.
Right, let's get on with the recap. For those of you that have been with us from the start, I think most would have listened to episode 1. They might not have got to episode 5, but they should have listened to episode 1.
They might not have got to episode 2.
If they remember, episode 1 was A for Analysts, where we took a bit of a deep dive into that mysterious world of industry analysts. We talked about a lot of things, but one of them was how hard it was to find information on them themselves, their business models, and also about some of those exotic analyst summits that some vendors put on.
And it felt like a little bit of a detached thing. It was an episode on its own. It felt like it was lacking something until we got a scoop for episode 17. And we had the absolute pleasure of sitting down with a real industry veteran, someone who spent 23 years as an analyst with one of the biggest firms out there, and someone who truly has CX and contact centre in his blood.
Our first ever CX Insider guest on the show was the one and only Steve. I'll let you figure out what his surname is. One of the things that struck me from our chat to Steve was his absolute conviction about the analyst's true purpose.
Yeah.
Now, in episode 1, we went into that episode with a bit of a cynical view, maybe, especially regarding the financial relationships between analysts and vendors.
With good reason for some of those relationships and some of those analysts and some of those vendors, to be sure.
Yeah. I mean, Steve was really clear about this. Some of them are analysts and others are influencers.
Indeed. There's a difference between an analyst and an influencer.
Yeah.
What struck me was his very strong core belief that his role at Gartner, because that's where he was to ensure that his end user clients spent their money wisely. Whilst there's a lot of talk about analysts in the context of vendors, he saw his primary role as analysts in the context of their end user clients.
Yeah.
Making sure they made good decisions and making sure that their business benefited from those decisions. And he saw himself advising that buying community, not serving the selling community, which is an easy thing to get mixed up on. I certainly did for some years. He spoke to end user organizations daily. He did hundreds of calls per year with end users. And that's where he got really fascinating insights into what really goes on in the market from the buyer's side. And often totally at odds with what vendors say their customers say to them, which is an interesting thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and he gave us a great example. He recounted one where there was a tech provider that would say, this is one of our best customers, and then Steve would go and speak to exactly the same customer who would say, we can't stand them, we're getting rid of them. So that was a real revelation. And he was also very proud, and I think rightly so, that Gartner made real efforts to ensure their analysts were impartial and honest.
Yeah.
I mean, he pulled out of one of the strategic sessions with the vendor's competitor weeks before leaving Gartner, just because he wanted to maintain his own integrity and also maintain Gartner's integrity. He didn't want that conflict of interest.
He described his own personal brand as arrogant but honest. I think the arrogance is manifest, and we'll have to take his word on the honesty piece. And he also provided some really interesting context around those infamous analyst events, those things that we really had a go at them about in episode 1, and how things have changed, how things have moved on from the rubber duck incident that you mentioned in episode 1 to how things have become in the world of analyst events.
Yeah, I mean, he went back to the early 2000s where analysts were allowed to attend big events sponsored by vendors. World Cup. He took us through that one. But he really stressed that Gartner's policy has evolved. Now, Gartner explicitly pays for the analyst flights and accommodations. And now they're in a position where they won't attend analyst summits that are in these absolutely outlandish locations. Those very nice locations where you go to game farms, if the vendor's paying for them. But they will go to the event if it's held at the vendor's head office.
And we're speaking a lot about Gartner. Other analysts are available. I do believe, without my tongue anywhere near my cheek, that most analysts are playing it with a straight bat these days, certainly more so than they were in the past. And Steve also confirmed that he still has that yellow rubber duck that you gave him in your dim and distant past.
We did put it on his bed during the analyst briefing, but just to be fair, he was not the only one that got a yellow rubber duck. All the attendees did.
Yeah, well, I wonder if there are any analysts that have gone back to their room with more than a rubber duck in their bed. Who knows? Maybe they can get in touch and let us know.
I'm not going to say anything. But let's talk about Magic Quadrants, Pete. We spent quite a bit of time in episode 1 scratching our heads about why vendors put so much effort to getting that dot in the box. Steve is now experienced being on both sides because he's now working for a vendor.
He is, yeah.
So he was in a very good position to give us some insider perspective on this, which was very interesting.
Yeah, and he had to admit that maybe he was a bit naive about the sheer amount of work and grief and aggravation that goes into a vendor's response for the Magic Quadrant and all of those other reports. There's a whole load of different data and different analysis that's required, and it's bloody hard work.
And it was priceless to see him admit that.
It was, yeah.
His honesty and his arrogance, to see somebody like that admit that was priceless. But now that he's got that first-hand experience of how difficult it really is to produce that input, and we know this from all vendors, getting into those reports gives them a load of visibility. It helps them sell to the big corporates. And it also serves as a dodge the bullet strategy. For buyers, it gets over that situation where you're being asked uncomfortable questions by execs. It helps them avoid that because they can say, look, go and read the Gartner report.
Yeah.
Historically, probably for the last 10 years, you would never get sacked if Gartner said it was the right choice.
Back to episode 1, we also spoke about the nature of these reports, not just Magic Quadrant, all of them. Yes, it takes a lot of work from vendors to respond to these things and serve up the data. It also takes a lot of work for the analysts to process that and serve it up in a way that is meaningful to the market. It takes a lot of time. So we also discussed this whole thing about while they're great, while they're informative, they're out of date. By definition, they're a rearview mirror just because it takes so long to put them together. Steve agreed with us. He agreed with us. You know, it's the best we can do using that model. And he told us that Gartner, for example, and other analysts take 3 months to get things done. And that's starting to stretch out because of added policy and process and all the other stuff that goes on in the world. It's becoming more of an out-of-date process. And you've got to ask yourself, is that effective?
In our world today, which is changing at lightning speed in our space, I would say any report that has taken, let's say 6 months to produce the actual report. It took 2 months to craft the response to give to them to analyze. It's ancient history.
Yep.
In the way things are moving right now.
Absolutely.
But Steve did say that Gartner is evolving. And they are producing emerging quadrants every couple of weeks using more data. Now, I went and looked for emerging quadrants to try and find this unicorn. And I haven't found anything that's really relevant yet. But Steve did stress that Magic Quadrants are more than just product. It's also about the company's business strategy, their financial viability and geographic presence. So it's about assessing if a company will still be around in 5 years, more than does it have the latest tech. Now, that viewpoint I do not see being recognized in the trade press, in buyers, in sellers. I think they're all focused on now, what's our technology?
As we make this podcast, there's lots of chatter about Gartner and its share price, and therefore the analyst model generally. And you know what? I've got to question their vision and their ability to execute. The market's moved on you and you've missed it. That's my view. So while you're sitting there in your ivory tower pontificating about vision and ability to execute in other organisations, go into the washroom and have a look at yourself in the mirror, because you might be surprised at what you see. Don't ask other people to do what you're not able or prepared to do yourself.
Now, I've seen one post today where somebody had created a Magic Quadrant and put Gartner's dot right in the bottom left-hand corner.
Right, there you go.
So the memes are starting to come out. I think there is some truth behind this. So it's going to be interesting to see how this develops.
Every organisation needs to evolve and needs to move forward and needs to change to keep up with things. And that includes those organisations that are advising and judging others.
Go back to episode 1. We also suggested that if you're thinking about using analyst reports, go and talk to the analyst directly. Ask them about their vendor relationships and understand how they source the information. Go a level deeper than the advert. Understand what the process is so you can identify, are they real analysts or are they just influencers?
Don't make your buying decision based on a couple of dots on a map. That's a lazy way to do stuff, and you are better than that. So don't do it. Let's move on to that part of the show where we granted Steve 3 wishes. I think he did a brilliant job. He thought about it, and he said some things that really hit home for a lot of our listeners, and we know that from the feedback that we got.
His first one was a wish for the whole CX industry, and he really focused on people convergence. He highlighted the technology to create seamless customer journeys is already there. The biggest challenge is all about those organizational silos and personal agendas within organizations. The tech's not the blocker, it's the people. Different departments, whether it's customer service, social media monitoring, or the digital channel guys, all have their own technology budgets and product managers. And that causes a problem.
Yeah, it leads to those frustrating, disconnected customer experiences that we all hate and we all moan about. And he told us, about C-suite meetings, trying to bring these teams together where you could cut the atmosphere with a knife because it was all about personal agenda. How many times have we spoken about this in our boardroom episodes? The people in the boardroom are just people. They've all got the same emotions, the same feelings, the same agendas that you and I have got. And trying to bring teams together when you're basically asking them to make changes that diminish or maybe even make their roles redundant is a tough gig. And his point was, if you want seamless CX, you want seamless customer journeys, then you have to have seamless and joined up agendas internally. Technology is there to help, but you've got to be in a position to use it.
I was reading an article today about customer journey mapping. And I think in the world of AI, those old techniques of customer journey mapping, if you remember those big diagrams with swim lanes and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
With AI, that goes out the window.
Right.
Because customers do not operate any longer in those linear swim lanes. So you've got to rethink this. His second piece of advice was to his younger self. And I thought this should make everybody think. When you're young, be more enthusiastic about technology and what it can achieve. He said he wished he'd had a more open perspective on technology's potential earlier in his career.
Technology is no longer the pinch point. It's as broad as your mind and as deep as your pockets in terms of what you can do with it. However, blind faith in technology is becoming more and more dangerous. Well-researched, well-understood use cases for technology really push the boundaries. But be very careful these days about just letting it off the leash, because I'm sure we haven't seen the last of the horror stories.
Oh, yeah. We've said it. AI is not a silver bullet. It's going to take a while for this to really evolve and bed down, and nobody knows where it's going to end up. His third point was brilliant, and I think that resonated definitely with both of us. He gave some fantastic examples about how the UK has been at the cutting edge of innovation. You know, from the first call centre ACD in 1965, which you are very well versed in. The first social media site, Friends Reunited in 2000, and even the first programmable computer in Bletchley Park. The UK is known for inventing stuff and innovating.
Yeah. He implored both investors to be bolder in funding growing these companies and CEOs and the people working in them to have bolder ambitions. And it's very difficult when you're building a business because a lot of people build a business to exit and make money and all the rest of it. But when you're at the cutting edge of this stuff, we are very good at vision and execution. I hope you're listening to that, Gartner. We are. And I just thought it was a really sort of patriotic call to action for the UK from someone who knows to say, continue the innovation and lead from the front.
Some of the key takeaways from our chat with Steve were really reinforced a lot of what we said and felt in episode 1, but with a brilliant insider's perspective. So it just showed we weren't that bad in our first episode.
What, like we may know what we're talking about?
Yeah, just a little bit.
And we learned that analysts, particularly from the larger firms, are indeed focused on serving end users rather than just vendors. And I think Steve actually said that in a lot of cases, he just saw the vendors as an irritation. He confirmed that technology is not the main issue. Technology can do anything. You've got to imagine how you can use it and how you can use it effectively. It's all about the how and why you apply it.
The last point, which I think is the most important one for businesses today, is it's now all about the convergence of people and operations if you want to make this stuff work. That is absolutely paramount to crafting and developing those seamless customer journeys. The building blocks are there. You have to arrange the Lego bricks so that you end up with a castle, not a turd.
A castle, not a turd. Excellent.
Lastly, be bold. You know, it doesn't matter whether the investor, CEO, or somebody starting out in the industry. And if you, early on in your career listening to this, take those 2 words, tattoo them onto your arm so that you could see them regularly. Be bolder. I think that was brilliant.
We had a genuinely fantastic chat with him. I really enjoyed it. He was insightful. He was candid. He delivered on what he said. He balanced his arrogance and his honesty absolutely perfectly. And it's still one of our most popular episodes. So go and listen to episode 1 to tee it up and then listen to episode 17. It is well worth it. We're going to be back next time with another recap in episode 34 as we meander our way through the summer holiday or vacation season, depending on what side of the pond you're on.
In the meantime, follow the Angus and Pete Show page on LinkedIn for news and notifications, and please message us directly to tell us what you want us to talk about in Series 2, and if you want Series 2, and please keep that post bag bulging.
You know by now the show's available on all your favourite podcast platforms, so listen, like, subscribe and share, and help us spread the good word.
Pete, this might be a recap episode.
Yeah.
It still does not get you off the hook for Joke of the Week.
Okay. Well, this week, I haven't got a Joke of the Week as such. I've got some interesting facts about the crown jewels.
Okay.
You know, the state regalia of the British monarchy. And there's a point to this. It's not as random as you might think. So, I've got some questions for you. Don't think too hard about them because I've also got the answers. Okay. First one. Who owns the crown jewels?
The state.
The crown, which is the institution of the monarchy, as opposed to the monarch themselves. Which means that the reigning monarch, King Charles III, can actually wear them, but he can't pawn them.
Okay, so you can't go...
That's an important fact. Where are they kept?
Tower of London.
They are kept in the Tower of London, a notorious former prison and torture site, because nothing says national pride like displaying your national treasures next to a gift shop in a building you once used to execute your enemies. Here's one. How much are they worth?
Priceless.
Well, they are priceless from a...
Every way you think about it, they're priceless because you can't flog them. If you had to insure them.
They're worth about £5 billion.
That would explain so much security when you go and visit them.
Have you got any idea what you could buy with £5 billion?
You wouldn't even be able to buy out Elon Musk's shares so that you could shut him up
Well, at the moment, but, he's working on that, isn't he? But a lifetime supply of noise-cancelling headsets for every contact centre agent on Earth you'd be able to buy for £5 billion. You'd also be able to buy a Netflix subscription for every human being on Earth. It's quite stunning, isn't it?
That's probably worth more.
Or, here's an interesting one, you could buy every vendor on the CCAS Magic Quadrant, assuming, of course, that they don't all start buying AI companies at $1 billion a pop when they're not worth it. And finally, you could do all of that, or you could buy a 3-bedroom flat in West London.
Yeah, a small 3-bedroom flat.
Indeed, a small one. So there's lots of jewellery and stuff in the crown jewels. What's the biggest diamond? What's it called? Where did it come from? You should know this.
It was cut from the Cullinan diamond, but don't ask me what it's called.
It's called Cullinan 1, or the Great Star of Africa. Where did it come from?
Cullinan, which is just west of Pretoria.
Exactly, South Africa. So thanks for that. 530.2 carats, Angus.
It's as big as a very large hen's egg.
What's the oldest item in the crown jewels?
It's not the crown. It's one of those blooming side ornaments that they use. It's a spoon or something.
You're absolutely right. It is a 12th century spoon, and it's a spoon that's used to anoint monarchs with holy oil, because nothing says divine ruler like a greasy 1,000-year-old kitchen utensil.
Now, I'll tell you why I knew that one is because when I went to go and look at them, I did look at that and go, how the hell have they not managed to lose the teaspoon? Because in our house, teaspoons have got lives of their own, and we are constantly replacing them.
Well, they've obviously got a little bit more diligence around their cutlery in the Tower of London than you have in your house. Final question, and the whole point of this bizarre rant. Has anyone ever tried to steal them, the crown jewels?
Yes.
Right. Do you know who?
No, but I remember that they were stolen and they disappeared for quite some time.
A guy called Colonel Thomas Blood tried to steal them in 1671, dressed as a priest. And he failed, he got caught, and he was mysteriously pardoned. And here's the point. Steve Blood, ex-Gartner analyst and CX guru, is directly related, a direct descendant of Colonel Thomas Blood. One Blood was dragged through the tower in chains. The other was dragged into endless CX vendor briefings. And I'm really not sure who has suffered more. Cheers, Angus.
Cheers, Pete.
Thanks for tuning in to the Angus and Pete Show. Remember, it's based on the personal views and opinions of the hosts and their guests. If you're feeling aggrieved or litigious, take a chill pill. There's already enough stress in the world. Don't forget to follow our page on LinkedIn and subscribe on your favourite podcast platform for more episodes. We'll see you next time. Oh, and tell your friends.